Welcome to our Habitat for Humanity home maintenance class. My name is Paul Gusty, and I'm a volunteer instructor with Habitat for Humanity. I always like to start these classes with a disclaimer. I am not a professional carpenter or a plumber or an electrician or a professional painter. I am, in fact, just like you. I am a homeowner. And I have maybe gotten a little bit more experience than you have at this point in your stage of home ownership because I've owned several houses and I've gained some experience working on them over the years. So I would like to share with you today what I've learned, and maybe you will take that and become more confident about tackling some of the projects that will come up in your house. So with that said, let's get started. And now we come to the plumbing section of the class. We're going to teach you quite a few things about your plumbing system. And the first thing I want to cover is, I find it fascinating, is this little thing right here. You'll see this, you'll recognize this underneath your kitchen sink and underneath your bathroom sink. It's a very common thing. This is a PVC pipe that's going into your wall, into the plumbing, and then it comes down into a loop here and it goes up to your sink. And this is called, if you hold it up like this, it looks like the letter P. So it's called a P-trap. And interestingly enough, this was invented, or something similar to this was invented in 1775, and we are still using it today to keep us safe in our plumbing systems. And how this works is it's gravity. Which is why they could invent it in 1775. So you've got this going out into the wall, and it goes into your sewer system. So you probably know that there are toxic fumes, sewer gases they're called, that are in the sewer system, and they migrate all throughout the sewer system. And if this thing was a straight line up into your sink, the sewer gas would come up from the sewer and go down this line and go up right into your sink. And sooner or later, we could get sick from inhaling all that sewer gas. So the P-trap solved that problem. And so you've got your sink up here, and when you run water, water will accumulate in the P section of the trap. And that prevents any sewer gases from coming up this far and getting into your sink, because the gases can't pass the water here. And because of gravity, there's always going to be water in this P section of the trap. So it's a blockage. That's just was a genius move, actually. And so we're still using it today. I think it's a charming story. So then we're going to talk about how we're going to end up talking about clogs and drains. We're going to talk about sink drains first, and then we're going to talk about toilet drains, clogs. If you prevent clogs, you won't have to use any of these tools, and you won't have the nightmare of having guests over and all of a sudden something's not working properly. So again, with sinks, for kitchen sinks, probably the thing that people do wrong the most frequent is they'll dump oils down. They'll do some cooking, frying up ground beef or something, and you end up with fat that's left over in your pan, and you really don't want to dump that down your sink, because that's going to go right down into your P-trap, and if it doesn't flush out thoroughly, it's going to sit down there and it's going to kind of coagulate, or maybe it'll get up to here and it'll coagulate, and it's not going to happen right away. It will happen over time. So maybe you've been doing this oil dumping for a year, and then all of a sudden something else is going to come along, like an orange rind or something like that, and it's going to get clogged up, and it's another layer gets clogged up, and sooner or later you can't pass water through your sink, and it's all backing up into your sink. So just avoid any kind of oily substance going down your drain. If you have a garbage disposal, be careful of what you put down that. Overusing the garbage disposal or putting the wrong kinds of things down could eventually cause this kind of a backup. Garbage disposals notoriously don't do well with orange peels, lemon peels. Chicken skin is another one that's famous for getting clogged up. And if you do get a clog, and it starts to back up in the kitchen sink, you'll hear a lot of, if you go to the YouTube or the internet, unfortunately, you might see some suggestions about taking a bucket of boiling hot water and dumping it down your kitchen sink. That's not a good idea for this reason. If you have a clog in, say, the pipe at the point where my hand is, and you dump hot water down the kitchen sink, that boiling water is going to sit here maybe for 3, 4, 5 minutes until it cools down. And it's such a high temperature when it boils that you could actually cause the pipe to become misshapen. You could damage the seals between the two pieces of PVC. So it's not good for your PVC. So you may be thinking, well, I boil pots of spaghetti and I dump the spaghetti water that's boiling down the kitchen sink, and that's fine. And the reason it's fine is because you don't have a clog when you're doing that. And that boiling water will come down and flow out pretty quickly. And so it doesn't have time to do any long-lasting damage to your PVC pipes. So dumping boiling water without a clog is okay. But if you have a clog, don't let that boiling water sit here because it'll cause more trouble. Okay, now let's talk about bathrooms, bathroom sinks. So the most common problem that occurs in a bathroom sink is hair congestion. Anytime there's a bathroom sink clog in my household, you can tell who gets blamed. It isn't me. So anyway, there is a thing called a hair snake that is exactly this. And you can see it, it's just a piece of plastic, and it's very cheap. It's like $2 maybe. And there's little barbs that stick out on both sides. They're actually quite sharp. And what you do is you shove this down into the sink opening and just move it down and then just pull it out. And you'll probably, I think 90% of the time, a bathroom sink is hair clogs. And so you'll pull out a bunch of hair and just remove the hair and then maybe go down again and pull it out again. And you can go deeper and deeper as you can until maybe it's all the way in if you need to, and you just pull it out. And it works very, very well. It's a great solution. I will say this, don't get aggressive and don't yank it out. Because if you do, it's plastic and it might snap, or maybe the barb or something comes off. And then you're stuck with a piece of plastic down in your plumbing. So you end up having a worse problem. So after the hair snake is really only good for a bathroom and also the shower drain. You wouldn't necessarily use that in a kitchen sink drain. You could, but you probably wouldn't have a lot of hair in your kitchen sink. And then the next step, the next easiest step to unclog a sink drain would be to take a bucket, and we've kind of already talked about this a little bit, but just put, not boiling water, but put hot tap water in. The pipes can handle the tap water temperature. So fill this bucket up full, and then you can just dump this into your sink. And just the heat of that water sitting on the clog might undo the clog and send it further down the line. And if you see some improvement, maybe do it again, and a second flush might take care of it. But if that doesn't work, that's the easiest one. There are some other techniques. One of the ones that is actually pretty successful is using baking soda and vinegar, household vinegar. So you can take a half a cup of baking soda, and that's what you do first. And you pour the baking soda into the drain and kind of push it down there, make sure it's down as much into the drain as you can get it, because you don't really want it above the sink. And so that goes in there, and let that sit down in there for, like, say, 10 minutes. And it might do some action on the clog just by itself. And then you're ready for the fireworks. After that 10 minutes, you take a half a cup of vinegar. And these two things are going to interact with each other chemically, and they're going to cause not an explosion, but they're going to fizz up and be very energetic. So be prepared for that. And you're also going to want something like a sink stopper or something to, once you're going to pour a half a cup of the vinegar in the sink with the baking soda. And then as soon as you pour it in there, you want to cover that sink up with a stopper to keep the interaction down in the pipes and not have it come up into the sink. So do that. Enjoy your explosion that you've got going on, and let that sit for about a half an hour. And if you notice an improvement, then maybe that means it worked partially. So do it again, and maybe that second time will clear. If it doesn't clear, then you have to go to something a little bit more rigorous, I guess. And that's where this kitchen plunger comes into play. So what you do is get a little bit of water in the sink, building up like maybe an inch or two of water in the sink, and then put that down to cover the opening in the sink. And you want a good seal between the base of the sink, porcelain or stainless steel, whatever it is. And then you get that there, and then you just shove down. And that made a big noise from the table. And then pull it back up. You can see the connection that it's made here. It had a good seal, and it forced a lot of air down into the pipes, and some water, because the water was there when you put it in there. So it forced both water and air down into the pipes. And just do that several times. And actually, you won't have this much trouble having it stick in the sink because it's wet, but just do that maybe 20 times. And that tends to agitate the water that's already in the pipe, and it might be enough to push the clog further down the line. And then failing that, you go to the next step, a little bit more involved. And now we're under the sink. And this is where our P-trap is. So you're coming down from the sink here. So these things are typically made with, you can see there's little handles right here. So these are the connections. So you can undo this connection. There's your seal, your ring right there. And then you can undo this one. Let's see. Do that. And there's a seal there. And then now this is actually going into your wall. So a lot of times your clog is actually in the P-trap. It's down here at the bottom of this. So inspect your P-trap, clean it out. And if this is a bathroom sink, there's probably a stopper right above the P-trap, maybe the sink, P-trap, and there's a stopper that will hold water in the sink. You lift up on a rod or whatever you do, and that will block off the sink. A lot of times hair gets clogged in that stopper. There's all kinds of different designs, but you can take that stopper out. There's a little thing you have to unscrew, and you can pull a rod out. You can get that stopper out. You can pull it all the way out, and a lot of times the clog is there. So if cleaning the P-trap didn't help, and I guess in order to find out whether it helped, you'd have to put this all back together again, and then run water. And if you still had a clog, that meant that you've inspected everything all the way down to where it gets into the wall. So now you've got a problem, obviously, in the wall. So the next thing you would do after that is snake the drain. So you'd have, I call it a snake, but I guess officially it's called a sink auger. We're actually going to set up a demo here so we can show you how the sink auger works. And that's what we'll do next. Okay, here we are at our demo of how to do a sink augering if you have a block inside the pipe that goes into your wall. Here's the your wall, maybe your kitchen sink wall. This is probably, well, not probably, it is underneath the kitchen sink. So this would be a little lower for demo purposes. We made it easy on me at this height. So here's your PVC pipe that we just talked about with the P-trap. And you've already actually had this removed. And so you're left with this piece of pipe. And if you want, you can either snake through this pipe and up into the pipe that goes through the wall, or in this case, we have another join that holds the PVC pipe in, and you can open that up and pull this pipe off and then make sure there's no clog there. And if the clog truly is inside the wall, you can use your sink auger. And this has got just a metal, very flexible coil, rope almost, and it has a very sharp point to it that can cut through anything that might be obstructing the water flow. And it comes in here, and in this drum here, it just circles around in here. And this particular one has 15 feet of this coiled wire. Some of them go 25 feet, 50 feet, whatever you need to buy, but probably 15 feet would be good enough for what you would need. So you start it like this, and there's a little knob on here that you push down, and that will keep it locked in place. And then if you want to let more out, which we'll show you in a minute, you push it there, and then you can move it in or out. So you don't know where the clog is, so you just start by feeding some of the wire in. And if you feel some resistance, it could be one of two things. It could be your clog that you're after, or it could be a 90-degree elbow, a turn in your pipe that you typically would have behind a kitchen or bathroom wall, where the pipe would actually go down. And so you might be hitting the backside of that elbow, and in that case, you just really kind of want to keep pushing it through. You can do it either with your finger like this if it's easy, or you could lock this down and push it through, because you can push with this locked. And once you're at a point where you're maybe past that 90-degree, or you're right at what you think might be the clog, you start turning. And that will turn that sharp tip that we showed you. And then if it goes in up to this point, then you open this knob again and put more in. In fact, you can come out to here like this, and then lock this down, start turning, and then push as you're turning. And what's happening in the pipe here is that whole thing is turning, and it's kind of scouring out whatever might be in there. And just keep turning and pushing, turning and pushing. And then at some point, you're feeling like there's nothing left. It's all free turning, and you don't feel any resistance. So you may have cleared the clog at that point. So if you're confident, you can pull this back out and keep this opening and just shove it back in. Now this is going to be wet because you have a clog and there's water in there. So you might want to dry it off as you're pulling it out, or dry it out later. But it's important not to just put a wet coil back in the drum and then set it aside, store it somewhere, because it'll start to rust. So you want to protect the investment of the auger and dry it off before you store it. Okay, so I think I'm done. I have this back, lock it off, and then now you have to put your pipes all back together, and all the different connections, and put the P-trap and connect up to the sink, and then tighten it down, and then try to run some water and see if you were successful. And you probably would be. I think it's a good solution, and it's exactly what a plumber would do if you called a plumber. So why not buy a sink auger and deals with a few little pieces of plastic pipe, and you can solve it yourself. And if you can't, then it's time to call the plumber. Maybe the clog is like 100 feet down towards the sewer line in the street or something. Who knows? But you can probably solve 80%, 90% of all of your drain clogs. And then I think we're done with this particular topic, but there's one other thing that I wanted to talk about in terms of clearing sink drains. A lot of people use caustic chemicals. There's a couple of very popular brands. And it can be successful, it has been successful, but it comes with a price, maybe a twofold price. It can deteriorate your pipes, especially if you use it frequently. I've heard people just do this, whether they have a clog or not. They put stuff like that down their drain once a week. It's just not a good idea at all. It will damage your pipes. It'll eat away even the other pipes that you have that go down into the sewer. So the second reason not to use caustic chemicals is maybe a personal one, certainly an environmental one. Those caustic chemicals, they'll think about what they do to you personally. If you get them, you should be wearing gloves if you do happen to use these, because if you don't and you get it on your skin, it could start to burn your skin. And if you'll breathe the fumes in, and your lungs might start to burn. So if it's doing that to your body, imagine what it's doing if thousands of people in your community are dumping those chemicals in their drains, and it's all flowing out to wherever the wastewater goes. And it's just not, it eventually gets into a body of water that either you're drinking from or fish are swimming in, that kind of animals are drinking from. So it's just really environmentally not a good thing to do, and I don't recommend it. Well, you can probably tell that we have set up for the toilet clog demo. We've got the rubber gloves on, which is what you should be using if you're dealing with a toilet clog or a toilet backup. We have our toilet here, which is backed up, okay? And then we're going to go through a couple of steps that you personally can take to try to deal with the clog and get it working again properly without having to call a plumber, which, as we know, is pretty expensive. So the first thing is, if there's already a lot of water in the bowl, don't flush again, because it's not draining, and adding more water is just going to cause it to overspill. So thinking that there might be an overspill, you want to probably protect your floor. Maybe put down some plastic tarp, newspaper, something like that to cover the floor to protect it. And then you might want some ventilation. So if you have a bath fan, turn that on. If you have a window, open that window. And that would make it a little bit more comfortable for you to deal with the situation. All right, so we've got our gloves on and we're ready to go. We're going to talk about 3 different ways that you can approach unclogging your toilet. The first one is darned easy. I have been successful personally with this method, and I recommend it. You take dishwashing liquid that you've got in your kitchen, doesn't matter what brand, and you just squirt 2 or 3 squirts, maybe 3 or 4 squirts into the bowl, and then step back and let that work its way down. You'll see it actually dropping through the water, if you can see through the water. It'll drop down through the water, and it'll kind of work its way into, gravity's taking it down into where the clog might be. And let that sit for like 10 minutes, just all by itself. And then go to your kitchen faucet and get the water nice and hot, and fill up a bucket with hot water. And here again, like the kitchen sink, let me step back a bit. Never put boiling water into your toilet, for a different reason than in the kitchen. Your toilet is made out of porcelain, and a sudden increase in temperature to a level of boiling could actually crack your porcelain. And then you've actually ruined your toilet. You'd have to buy a new one. So no boiling water ever. So hot tap water is fine. So you'd get this up to here maybe, and then you just step over here, and you're going to get right on top of it, and you're going to hold the bucket up here. You don't want to do this down here, because you're not letting gravity speed up this, the force of the water. So you want to hold the bucket up here and then pour the water out. And try to aim right at the middle where the actual drain hole is in the toilet. Don't aim up here towards the front. Go right into where the problem is. And let the force of that hot water help drive the clog up and out. I say up and out because the pipes, they go down, and then there's a P-trap inside your toilet, by the way, which is why we don't have sewer gas coming out of the toilet. So it goes up and then down and then out to the street, basically. So then now you've poured the bucket of water in, hot water, and just step back, put the bucket down, and relax for 10 minutes or 15. And maybe come back after that time has expired and see if you've had some success and the water is starting to flow out. If you see the water that was there gone, try to flush it at that point and see if you've been successful. If you haven't, but you feel like you've made some progress, the water's a little less sluggish, you could try that method again because it's such an easy method to do. So just dump the soap back in, wait your 10 minutes, hot water, hip level pour in there, do it again, and you might get lucky and have it all gone out. I have been successful, like I said. So if that doesn't work, you have to go to the next step. And the next step is a plunger. And there's a difference between, these are toilet plungers. There's a difference between a toilet plunger and a sink plunger. Notice that there's multiple different types of plungers on the market. You can find several in your hardware store. They kind of taper down and they have a smaller opening here, which is designed to get inside the opening of the toilet, as opposed to the kitchen sink that we showed you before, which is squared off. And that's designed for that kitchen. This is designed for a toilet. So this is not going to work very well because it won't make a seal. There's all these contours in a toilet, and this kind of a flat surface won't make a good seal, and you won't get a good suction action. So no sink plungers, but a toilet plunger. And this is actually pretty simple to use. You take the opening here and you just place it right down in that hole. And you want to make sure that if there's not already water, you want water up maybe halfway around the bell of the plunger. And if you don't have that amount of water, then just take your bucket and add that amount of water. And that water, plus the way you've positioned tightly the plunger into the porcelain opening, that's going to create a nice little seal. And then the first plunge is important. You've got a bunch of air in that plunger. So you're going to come down just gently because you don't want it all splashing up on you. Just go down gently at that first plunge, and that will drive the air out of the plunger, or most of the air. Then come back up. Now there's more water in the plunger than there was before because you have the seal. And then now you can just go like this. Just go pumping back and forth. Doesn't have to be super aggressive, but just go pumping up and down. And you might do that if you need to, maybe 20 times. But if you feel like there's a gush of water flowing all of a sudden, you're probably done. So try that. And then if the water's down to the point where you're safe to flush it, to add more water, go ahead and flush it and see if that takes care of it and the water flows. If it doesn't, you could try plunging again and just keep trying it. But if that plunger doesn't work, you've got one more thing to try before you call a plumber, which, as we said before, is expensive. So there's a thing called a toilet auger. You may remember that we used a sink auger for a sink, and we showed you how that worked. And this is the same, kind of the same thing. It's got this wire. It's a little heavier duty wire, thicker. Has more diameter to it, and it has the little prong at the tip, which churns through things. And then the nice thing about this auger, and most of these toilet augers, is this is a soft material. And there's like a little rubber handle here. So this curve down here is designed to go down inside the opening of the toilet. And the beauty of it is this is not going to scratch your porcelain. If you try to use the sink auger down here, which you could do, but as you turn this scratchy metal, is going to be rotating around inside your porcelain toilet, scratching the surface. And that'll kind of ruin the look and maybe even the function of your toilet. So don't use a sink auger in a toilet, use a toilet auger. All right, so the way this works is you pull the tip of it all the way up to where it stops. And then now I'm going to put this hand on the rubber handle, and then I'm going to carefully push this down, and so I get inside the toilet. And again, there's a bunch of different designs, and maybe I can feel that I'm already going up in the upward part of the channel. So get it in there as far as you can, and then you just start to rotate this handle. You got to hold on to here and then rotate. And just like the sink auger, that's going to cause that metal tip with the spike end on it to turn inside the toilet. And then keep pushing the auger down and turn as you push it down. I've hit some resistance right here. I might try to redirect it. There we go. So you may have heard that. I just pushed it past the P-trap, up and over that P-trap, or down and under that P-trap. And so just keep pushing. You're not going to do any harm. And then keep turning as you push. And then, so I can go down. This isn't as long as the sink auger. This is probably only 8 feet maybe. And then when you think you're done, just carefully pull it out. You retract. Keep the part that's going to protect your porcelain. Keep that down there, and retract this until it gets to the end. And then now you can safely pull it out of the toilet like that. And you might, while you were turning that, you might actually experience a big gush of water if you've pushed the clog further down into the sewer. And as it gets further down out of your home into the sewer, the sewer pipes are like 4-inch diameter, so they're much bigger. So the clog is probably going to flow without any problem once you get it to the bigger sewer pipe. And that is how you deal with the toilet clog. And that concludes our home maintenance course today. Thank you for spending your valuable time with me, and I hope you took away some useful lessons. And remember, if you're taking this course for credit, please take the test at the end of the course.